It's time for the Equity Equals Freedom podcast on WOBL. And now, here's your host, Rick Rucker.
That's right. We are back in action. I have to wear my Cleveland It's a Major Award t-shirt. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the disclaimer, legal disclaimer. Primary purpose of this radio show is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, recommendations presented during the radio show do not constitute legal or otherwise professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind. Equity Capital Mortgage Group is a division of Gold Star Mortgage Financial, NMLS 3446, equal housing lender, corporate address 100 Phoenix Drive, Suite 300, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48108. Good old Ann Arbor, Michigan. U of M. U of M won. They won the college playoffs. I'm a big Buckeyes fan, so that kind of hurt me a little bit. But my co-host Jenny always gets me a little riled up. I was just telling her, she walks in like 3 minutes till. I'm like, am I going to have to like freestyle rap for an hour? Like, what am I going to do?
I always show up.
Yeah, you show up like just right in the nick of time, so I stopped sweating. But Jenny, go ahead and introduce our guest this week, because I know that was your.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got to ask the guest this week. So I asked Ryan Ruehle from Columbus.
And why did you ask Ryan?
Well, because Ryan has been a big part of my success over the last year in real estate, and just super inspirational to me, and just what he's accomplished and continues to accomplish. And I keep asking him if he's going to slow down, and it looks like that's never going to happen. But
he's a driver personality.
Oh yeah. You guys remind me. Oh gosh, I didn't even think about this. Both of you in the same room at the same time.
It's going to be a lot of energy.
Remember that therapy session we had last month?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's great. He's killing it. He's got a big team in Columbus, one of the biggest teams that I know of, and he's helped me just so much the past year. So I thought it'd be great to have him on and just chat business with us.
I agree with that. And the biggest thing, obviously, in real estate, and one thing I noticed, and, it's just going over my head, like, what are some of the things we talk about today? I just noticed, especially in the realtor group, especially like with some of these like organizations, like, I don't want to say anyone specifically, because then everybody like, are you talking about them? But I have noticed in a lot of these realtor organizations, a lot of times, like, they pick the losers almost to talk, and it bothers me, because I'm like, you look up these people's numbers, and they're hype beasts, like, oh, this person's great, and this includes loan officers, because there was people would swear like the best loan officer in America, and then you look up their numbers and you're like, this is who they're hyping up.
Yeah.
Like, this is awful. So, but like I said, we like bringing in the winners. Obviously, you're a winner, but go ahead and like tell us like what got you into the business, and like, we try to like kind of start from there and then build out of there.
Sure. Appreciate the introduction there.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm originally from Ohio, so Gallion, a little further. I would say north, but not north from here, from Columbus. But
I was gonna say that's definitely south. Oh.
Yeah. So originally from there, and I would say I've always been interested in business, being an entrepreneur. I was kind of blessed. My mother had a very small flower shop in Gallion.
Oh, yeah.
But she owned it, so I got to see some of the ups and downs of being a business owner. And,
oh, yeah.
And
that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, just being able to be a part of seeing different decisions, choices, just how the business would run from an owner's perspective as a little kid. So for me, I kind of always knew that was probably going to be my driving force, and where I wanted to put my efforts and figure out then what I was passionate about, right? You being a business owner is one thing, but finding something you're passionate about and then do it is big.
Profitable.
So for sure. So for me, I ended up going to Walsh, played football at Walsh. Realized very quickly, 96.
Okay. Did you know Moses Sherman?
I don't think I know that now.
Actually, he went to Malone. He was actually the COO of the company.
Malone.
Yeah, he was the COO of the company, the first mortgage company I ever worked for, and he played for, I think he played nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he's part of the reason why I'm a maniac.
Part of the many reasons.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
but I go back to the floral shop. I mean, were you working that like as a teenager or whatever?
As little as I can remember, I was there doing something.
Yeah.
Cleaning the floors, or as I became able to obviously drive and do that, I had to be the delivery boy. So that was.
Now, obviously, like seeing that at my old man owned an accounting firm, which is, I guess, why we're kind of trailing off into this. But I mean, seeing that like as a business owner, I mean, don't you think that like really, I guess, impacts your opinion on like when you start your business? Because like people are kind of shocked sometimes, like how much like I'll do. Like I know Jenny and I have talked about it. Like she's like, well, sometimes if somebody's not doing something, you just do it. I was like, yeah, I mean, but that's part because, I grew up in a small business too. Like my old man had a little accounting firm and, he did everything. So
yeah,
you feel like that kind of gave you more of an appreciation for probably entrepreneurship or?
For sure. Yeah. Just seeing, I mean, it was obviously family. So my dad had another job, but when he wasn't working, pitch in, my brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very much, just seeing all aspects of it, right? I can remember going with my mother when you had to go and buy the flowers and buy the different things and being a part of that stuff. And
is it a high profit margin business? I always wondered.
In Gallion, Ohio, no. No, but it was cool to see again because it was something she was passionate about. Her father helped her, so she started out in high school working there.
Yeah.
And then as that lady decided to sell, her father helped her to be able to get into it. And then she met my dad, and they were able to purchase the business. And I wouldn't say it was the most profitable, but she made it very successful. And just seeing how you could, not work the 9 to 5 and, everything that we're brought up to kind of learn, right? We go to college, you get a 9 to 5 job, and somebody tells you what you're worth and all those good things. So I got to see some of the other sides of that and how to be creative and learn different ways of making a business work.
Yeah, and my dad, like when we were younger, I never forget, like I started walking dogs when I was 10. I had like a little dog walking business. I thought I was like doing my thing. And then he would encourage me and my sister, Maya, who's basically my top loan officer, and obviously a force to be reckoned with in the real estate business. He would, similar to you, he would have us create buttons and would go sell them at Twins Days. So like we were like always excited about like just different ventures and like creating businesses. But I like going back to that because I feel like part of the reason why you're so successful is probably because you were brought up in that world of like, creating a business. But fast forward, you went to Walsh. What position did you play? Because now we're going to talk football.
DB.
All right.
So, yep, I played corner. Realized, though, quickly that the NFL was probably not going to come knocking.
Why not, man?
When you're 5'8" and 130 pounds.
That's very true. It's always crazy how the secondaries are, like, shorter than the wide receivers.
Yes. And as you step up, and it's crazy, it's like anything in life, right? As you step up to that next level, just the competition, and then when you go from
It's intense.
Being a starter and never getting off the field to trying to figure out how to just get one play on the field.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game. So realized that I was spending a lot of money for a dream that probably was short-lived.
It's tough for a lot of people to let go of that.
It was, yeah. Very tough, yeah. Knowing when I transferred, so I left there. My brother was at Ohio State and decided to transfer and just go to Ohio State. And
did you try to walk on there? You never know, man.
He's 5'8", dude. Sorry.
That was That was back when Katzenmoyer was there.
Yeah.
He was an animal. Eddie George was there. Like that's kind of one of the twilight years.
Yeah.
And I was actually back when U of M, all jokes aside, was actually pretty competitive, and then we just dominated them in the early 2000s up until really recently, but not anymore.
The rivalry was real good back then.
Yeah, it was fierce.
You'd go into every game and not know.
Yeah, ever. It didn't even matter what each other's records were, which is, that was competitive ball.
Yep, those were good times. So, realized it when I came, and I would say Columbus was very instrumental in getting me into real estate, just because Columbus really was starting kind of that place of where we're at now with the growth and just everything from when I look at, I did a post yesterday. It was funny. 21 years is my 21st year in real estate, and when I look back to just numbers and price points and the market at that point, yeah, it's been night and day. And so yeah, at Ohio State's when I realized quickly that real estate was kind of my calling and going to be my thing.
What was that like going from small town Ohio to going to like a major market? I know a lot of times like it's probably tough for like that transition, but like what was that like going from like small town,
Big change. Yeah. Ohio State just in general was a big wake-up call because I'd never been, even at Walsh, right, our class size 20, 30 people to go into.
Yeah.
Some of my initial classes at Ohio State of just an auditorium full of people, and nobody would know if you ever, that was the time when if you really didn't want to show up to class,
you didn't have to.
No one cared.
Yeah, like when I was in high school, so my sophomore year, I was, Mr. Athlete, football, basketball, track, like letter and everything, like still have records in the school, blah, blah, blah. Sophomore year, I had my C1, C2 operator on, so it took me out of football, and I had a letter from like Joe Paterno. I had a letter from Ohio State asking me to play. I was defensive tackle, offensive tackle.
Wow.
But after my injury, I was like, well, what am I going to do in life? And I'm all of 15, 16 years old. So I transferred to St. Peter Chanel, which is just a totally different, beast. And that was kind of like a culture shock to me. Like I kind of did the inverse where I went from like a big public school to, a small Catholic school. And it was kind of the same when I went from Kent State to John Carroll for my master's. That was just also a culture. I mean,
Sure.
Kent State was party school. We're always behind Ohio State, but I like to think that we were better.
Well,
the townhomes.
The townhomes. The real estate's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, you used to pop off at the townhomes, though.
Sure.
Talking my Yellowstone mug. So you went to Ohio State. What was your, did you finish out, what was your degree in?
So we talked about this the other day.
We did.
I didn't. I don't know, my parents won't hear this, right?
We're live on here.
So
Maybe.
I literally started buying investment properties at Ohio State. So that was my
That's
initial.
smart.
So I got into real estate as an investor, wasn't looking to get licensed, wasn't even looking to pursue that path, just had a game plan of buying duplexes, and one side would pay the note,
Right.
and the other side would just be money in my pocket. And at the time, when you're 20 years old and, property's bringing you $300 a month and working full time, I was making maybe $500 a month.
What were you doing?
Right? I was working at Schottenstein's.
What's that?
Schottenstein's was a department store there in Columbus, kind of like a Walmart, similar.
So you were working full-time, going to school full-time?
Yep.
And then you decided that this is, like, real estate was where the money was going to be?
Yeah, I was, for me at the time, being an investor, I enjoyed finding the deal, negotiating the deal. I enjoyed those aspects of the business.
Sure.
And then just to be able to see, I think on my first one that I ended up selling, I made back then maybe 12 grand on it, which was more money than I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So then knew, okay, that I dropped out. So
How long were you in at that point?
I probably had about a year left.
Woo!
I know, that's what I said when he told me. I'm like, wait, what?
But I knew it. I was certain with where I wanted my path to go. And that whole time through college, from Walsh to Ohio State, I was super confused on even, I was going down a business road, a business degree, but I had no idea of, okay, I'm going to have a degree. And I knew with the path that I was going in real estate that it just wasn't going to do anything for me.
And that's something, because we just had a partnership we're facilitating with the Cleveland Public School System. And I talked to the bad kids, because at one point I was the bad kid.
Sure.
But, the biggest thing we try to instill in them and tell them is, like, listen, like the generation before, like my old man, like, trust me, like I flunked out at Kent my freshman year, and he was like, you're cut off, like you got to figure out life, blah, blah, blah. So when I went back and it was on my dime, president's list, dean's list, like blah, blah, blah. But that was also because like I had that learning lesson and I took time out. I did some flips and I was not good at it. So I was like, okay, I need to get smart with business. No, I was awful.
No.
This was,
It's not for everybody.
I had a partner at the time and we did all the rehab work and he just wasn't really, like, it wasn't like he was a realtor, like, that could like tell us what to do. So we would just be sitting on these properties and we do all the wrong stuff essentially. So I was like, I need to get a degree. But you're one of, I think the biggest thing that I really try to tell these kids is like, listen, don't rush into college because you think, your parents think one, because honestly, general contractors, we were talking to a guy today about an $80 million development deal and he didn't even have a general contractor pinpoint. I'm like, I froze. I'm like, so like kids, like, if you are good at the trades, then focus in on that. Like, and it's a much cheaper route, or go to Tri-C for a year before you go, go into a 4-year college, because some people just aren't built for that. And if I would have went probably for a year for Tri-C, I would have been fine. And, I took a couple classes at Tri-C, but it was good. But
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Serious question though. Now, when you bought those houses, did you buy them from student loan money, or were you selling weed?
Well, here's what I'll tell you is, back then, the good and the bad times of the subprime. I sold a lot of really bad. You remember the subprime world, right?
Oh yeah, that was part of.
So I think at one point I had 5 duplexes, and I was still renting. I was a renter myself. I know the house.
Because you could probably finance for 100%
all day long.
Yeah. Stated income and all that good stuff.
And it's like, ignorance is bliss, right? You just don't know what you don't know. So I had some interesting loans that I was being provided, but they were giving me money to go buy stuff.
But you were performing because you got to 5 of them.
I knew the numbers, yeah. If you know your numbers, I tell everyone that first. You never go into a situation wondering, right? I always go in from the back end, and then we purchase, right? We know our exit strategy. We know what we're doing first. We know our numbers, and then let's go buy it. Yeah. When you do it the other way around, it gets a little bit, that's why I see investors and just different people that want to get into real estate get in trouble, right? They buy it thinking, okay, I'm just figure it out. Yeah. It's too late once you buy it. You should have already made your money as soon as you buy it.
Yeah, or the value add is, I think that's where a lot of people get buried, is when they try to walk in, at least more on the commercial side, because there's a lot of gurus out there that were selling people like value add, go in and add $10,000, $20,000 per unit, blah, 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 take investors' money, give them a return on that money in 24 months once you refinance out, and lo and behold, look at where we're at. Like, they can't refinance, So I think that's a really good point to emphasize to everybody tuned in, is make sure you have exit strategy before you even walk in. That is, textbook real estate.
Yeah. Yes. I see a lot of people get in trouble just buying and trying to figure out.
Yeah. So you bought properties, and then when did you switch gears and say, hey, I want to be a realtor. I want to get into the wild.
Yeah, it's a weird progression, and it's kind of cool because it just happened naturally. So as I was buying properties, a buddy of mine was a realtor, and I started to realize quickly that he wanted me to buy any and everything just because he was getting a commission. So come to find out, he wasn't bringing me deals, right? Like, every day he would try to get me into properties. I'd run numbers, and I would just tell him, like, this makes no sense. and I knew once I got a little more savvy, I'm like, well, he's feeding him. Like, he wants to pay his bills, right? So he's just like, hey,
he wasn't a real
buy a property, not necessarily a good property. So I realized, okay, 2 things. I can go find my own, and I'll get paid on them. Just go get a real estate license.
Right.
So the next thing was going down that path of getting a real estate license, and then I realized that once I had my license and I was doing well on the investment side, a lot of people were asking me, what are you doing, this and that?
Right.
So if it was a deal that I didn't want, or this or that, or if somebody I knew was a serious investor, I'd start working with them. That's all I did at the time, was just investors. Yeah. So I niched myself very much into that. I didn't do listings. I didn't handle any traditional real estate, if you will.
Yeah, and that's a really smart business model. Like, a lot of people, were like, what was the inspiration for our investor source group? And I was like, honestly, like, I had to pivot and shift rapidly around the market, or I would have sunk, and a lot of mortgage companies still refuse to shift around the market.
True.
And there's mergers, acquisitions going on. I think Ron, who actually owns Cross Country, just bought like 5 or 6 different mortgage companies, because the problem in real estate is a lot of people like act like their feet is in the sand, and when they just get into one alley, you just can't shift around it. And even one of my mentors in the industry, Dan Milstein, like, he was like anti-broker, but if I didn't start brokering and learning DSCRs and like all these investment products, like I'd have been sunk.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we saw last year took a lot of people out of the game, right? They just had a refi model, and what do I do now that I can't refi?
Yeah, and some major, I mean, you look at the percentages, some major mortgage companies were, 80, 90% refi, and you're like, whoo, how'd that show feel? so you focused in on investors, and then what made you shift and say, okay, now I want to create this brokerage?
Kind of what you just said. 2008, all that came about, right? And I would just slowly.
How many properties did you have? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
At that time?
Yeah, how many properties did you have?
I got up to maybe 10.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then started realizing that there was a different way. The market was shifting. My business model was shifting a little bit. I started getting a few agents that wanted to learn the investment side. So I was getting people with licenses. And really back then, the real estate team wasn't a thing. And it's funny, when I first started my first real estate team, my broker at the time told me it was illegal to do that.
It was illegal, huh?
Yeah, because you're
He's a
talking.
little bit older than us.
Yeah, you're talking 2004 or 5.
I was in
back in those days. And they just didn't. It was something. When you think outside the box, a lot of people just tell you, "No, you can't do that."
Teams were illegal back then. You just.
Well, they weren't, but that's what.
Oh, they wanted you to think.
Yeah, the broker would say, well, it was not illegal at all.
Yeah.
It was just different. So the broker, back then the mindset was, only the broker. So the commission goes to the broker, right? They split it up. And, the way like my business model is of course the broker would get it, but then I'm kind of a sub broker. I am a very large team, but people always think that I'm my own brokerage, but I'm not. I'm under.
Because you're big and you're consistent.
Yeah, I mean, we have our own offices, and we operate very similar, but we take advantage of the great things that come with our brokerage and their business model and things like that. But I started just realizing the power of leverage and training and helping. And then really got serious about how to make it a true business and not, because at the time I still had a job, right? I didn't have a true business.
You had that safety net.
Yeah. And I wanted to be able to build something that was, I think most people, if you get into being, I think, a business owner, entrepreneur, it's if you don't understand 2 things, right? You got to understand leverage and passive income. And when you understand those things and understand those things very good, then it's really a game changer.
Yeah.
So, I met my coaches, so Jay Kinder, Mike Reese. I met them trying to find a different way of doing business, and that's when my business changed, my mindset changed. When your paradigm and kind of your thought patterns change on certain things, that's when it becomes powerful. And then I started realizing, okay, there's a way to really, because at the time, right, real estate is very much, everybody copies everyone, right? And most people copy the wrong people, and that's the issue with real estate is you're not taught how to be a business owner, but you come in and from day one you are an independent contractor, small business owner. Yeah. But you're not taught any of that, right? Yeah. So we just look and like, okay, I'm gonna pick the first person in the office, which I did too in my office, and they were worse than I was. So you know what I mean? So and I tell anyone, right? Like, business is funny where. As a kid, you always taught, I'm sure you were too, to work on your weakness. Yeah, so I actually make, a funny story, I make people do a SWOT analysis on themselves. And in business, I'm the biggest believer is you hire your weakness and you stay true to what your strengths are. Yeah. It's my strengths aren't implementing certain things. My strengths aren't paperwork. My strengths aren't account, my strengths were sales, and the problem with real estate is most people, if you're good at sales, you're horrible at being organized, you're horrible at paperwork, you're horrible at so many different things. It's tough to manage people too, because there's a lot of branch managers in this industry that are horrible coaches. They're just really good producers, so they do so much volume, they get a branch or whatever, and then you
you ask them, well, like, you know, how's your team doing? You know, the team's out on the island, you know, no idea what's happening, no idea what's going on. And it comes that thing like, you know, I think my best year I did like $70 million or something like that, but that was back like during HARP. So like, you know, you'd pick up the call and be like, hey, you want a mortgage? Like HARP, like I couldn't understand how, because I came from the subprime era my first 3 years in the business. I was cold calling public record leads. But then like when HARP hit, like, you know, rates were low. They didn't have to have an appraisal. And I'll never forget, I was working at Nations Lending. Bill and Jeremy are still good friends of mine at Nations Lending. I went to work for him, and I think like the first week I was on the phone, I was getting like, you know, legit like 3 or 4 deals a day where you're sending out RESPAs and everything like that. So it was like, it was that easy to me. And they were like, we have guys that haven't got an application in weeks. And I'm like, how? Yeah. Like I didn't understand. I was like, I don't understand how people can't sell a mortgage where you don't even have to pay for an appraisal. All you have to do, it's a street. Like, how do you know, like,
those are your admin people, though, you know? Like, those are the people that are completely different than you and Ryan and me, that, like, we like the sales. It's the fun part. We're good at it. It's just funny how I think automatically people are going to be as good at something as we are, right? But then it comes to it, like, I hate the admin side of the business. I hate it. I hate the paperwork. Right? So I mean, I do what Ryan did. I hired someone to do it for me. All the stuff I don't like, or like, you know, a Nick to help with our, you know, our social media and our it's definitely interesting. I thought when I started I could do everything. Like I could do it all. It's super easy. I could, you know, write the contract and, you know, handle all the back end of it and get everything going and do the sales and the negotiating. And it was real quick that I found out I hated most of what all that entailed, and then realized what I was actually good at it.
And now you're just a rock star.
I'm just doing okay.
She's doing okay. She's so modest. Like you're trying to tell her stop being modest.
I know. Got to brag on yourself a little bit.
You got to be your own hype beast.
Right.
You see me.
You're my hype beast. I don't need him. I've got you.
Hype you up all day long. Jenny's the truth. But yeah, I guess to go back to the point, it's really tough sometimes to be a fantastic salesperson and coach people. And what you did and what I did in the last 3 years, like, you know, this was the proof in the pudding. Like, can you help people navigate through, essentially, I think personally it was worse than 08, 09, because 08, 09 there was plenty of inventory, so there was still a lot of purchase business, but it was like a screeching halt. Rates went up, you know, almost 4% overnight. And then you had the inventory crisis. So to me, it was like worse. But again, I don't talk about the negative to my team. I'm like, well, you know, yeah, rates have gone up, but they're still, you know, historically low compared to over the last, you know, 30 years. I mean, I was selling 8.5% rates when I first got in the business. Yeah. But I mean, again, a credit to you is like, you know, you went from that one person to, you know, how many now, like 30, 31? 33. And you were able to navigate that market, and that, you know, no sailor, you know, no sailor becomes a skilled sailor in, you know,
calm seas, sure.
Calm seas, there we go. Eventually I was going to spit it out.
I got what you were trying to say.
Today, Junior.
You need the storms. No, what you said is 100% the truth of, you know, one of the good things, probably one of the only good things about getting older is the knowledge piece, right? Going through
is the worst.
Going through and being able to navigate some of those times. Especially like you said with rates and things that are going on, right? A lot of my team hasn't experienced that. So just to be able to say firsthand, I can tell you some of the stuff we've navigated and gone through, and it sounds bad, but it's not that bad. And like you said, when you understand even the history of, you know, real estate or mortgages in the United States, rates right now are very, very good.
Yeah, they're still historically low. And, you know, I saw executives that I had a lot of respect for hide under their desk, and like, it was like every man for themselves. And like I said, to me, like to navigate this environment, like, dude, that was tough. I mean, what did you do every day to like work through that? Obviously you're already working with investors, so you were smart and you kind of probably beat the market, but like, what were some of the things that you did to like, you know, I guess progress through that? Because there's a lot of realtors that tune into our show. So
yeah, for me, it's again, you got to be able to truly understand, the business you're in, the market, and be able to pivot and be able to navigate that. If you're just set with, I'm going to do business this way, and I knew a lot of real estate agents that were like that, right? Like when the crash happened, they didn't understand how to do a short sale. They didn't, and they did not only did they not understand, but they didn't want to get that education. It was kind of those things of, now this is the way I do business, and a lot of those people just are not in business anymore, right?
Yeah.
The dinosaurs are going to die. So I started doing those things, learning how to do short sales. So I became an expert like that in my market. I learned how to do REOs. And then when you start, understanding the market and then figuring out how to position yourself as the expert in that market as it's going through, things, I always say during that time was one of my most successful probably periods, because I literally would I found a way of going to small banks, and they were foreclosing on properties that they didn't want to deal with them, right?
Yeah, they probably didn't know how to.
So I would go to the asset manager. I kind of figured out how to get in there and what to say and what they wanted to hear. And I would go to the asset manager to say, give me your whole portfolio. I'll take care of any renters, any evictions, mowing. I'll take care of lock changes. I'll take care of selling it. I'll take everything. I'm gonna be your one-stop shop.
Like a property preservation.
And the asset managers loved it.
Yeah.
So I would just get inventory every month just handed to me.
That's impressive.
It was, and it's funny because I was able then in my office because the people that weren't working, I had more people like, how do you have more business? How are you getting so much business?
Yeah, people ask us the same thing. How are you saying that?
And again, it's just thinking outside the box, and it's just finding. So what I would do is I would find properties that I knew were, you would drive by Columbus at that time and you'd see broken out windows, stuff boarded up, right? And I'd find out who the mortgage was through. And if it was a smaller bank in town, I'd find out how to contact the asset manager and say, hey, I just went and took care of your property. The windows were broken out and I boarded it up. And they'd be like, wow, we didn't even know this stuff was going on.
He's pretty smart.
But you know what I mean? And they were so impressed by that I was even spending my own dollar to go out and look at their property and then to board them up and do these things to help them, that they would just hand me the listings.
That is pretty genius. So that was obviously, pre-2000, or that was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you do this go round to help your team navigate around the market? What was some of your pitches, or what are the good tidbits if a realtor was tuning in?
Yeah, I mean, this market, like I said, rates aren't, to me, it's understanding the narrative, right? Where are you getting your information from? So we're very big on our team on that education piece, right?
Yeah.
I think a good business, and if you're in real estate, I think you need a few things. You need, I believe, very good systems, technology. Obviously, you need leads and those types of things. But more than that, you got to be very into the education piece.
Right.
Jenny sees, how many real estate agents put no time, no effort into understanding, the industry and what they're doing. And when you're able to really get educated on it and find, a good lender partner like yourself, I
didn't pay him for that, guys.
but to really figure out, there's still last year I think Columbus, we ended at 28,000 transactions. It's a lot of business.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talk to people, especially real estate agents or different people just in the industry,
a lot of it.
and they talk about how bad the market is, and I'm like, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm usually top 5, but on a normal year we'll sell around 300 homes.
Yeah.
There's 28,000 being sold.
Yeah.
I'm not even 1%. I'm not, you know what I mean? So there's still so much growth in an individual, in a team like us, where when I tell people, I'm like, you gotta understand, the opportunity in the market, and that's where, I feel blessed to be in Columbus or a place like Cleveland where it's grown and you have a great market to be able to do what you guys do.
Yeah.
Columbus has just been very good to me, and when you understand those things, the growth is just, where we could go. We're not even 1% of the market, and
yeah.
Yeah,
and that's just goes back to, there's a lot of people, if you have a abundance of opportunity mentality where there's I always look at it as a competitor. And, earlier today, I was telling my salespeople this. I was like, listen, if somebody is doing $100 million in loans and they're consistently doing it, you can do it too. there's no difference between you and them. The only difference is with them is consistency. Like $100 million producer, and I know, there's a couple of them that, mentor me, like Dan Milstein, I think closed like some obscene amount. It was like $500 million worth of mortgages in 1 year. Like I said, my best was 70. So I follow the winners. But,
yeah.
The biggest thing with like top producers is, to Jenny's point, they have a scaling system, right? Like, and you stick to it, like no matter what, every transaction you're already scaling, but they're already looking for the next piece before the first one closes. And they know that every day, the amount of shots you take is what you get out. So if you're sitting at home and you're, fumbling around and, you're looking at your phone, whatever, and you're not thinking about how can I get my next opportunity, then you will just never be, to me, a successful loan officer and or realtor, because realtors, you guys have to you have to drive around with a client, like that is, all the mortgage guy has to do is come in and kind of schmooze, realtors and say, listen, like, I'm going to tell you the truth. A lot of these other loan officers are going to tell you a lie because they're going to want to get your business. And then once the deal falls out and it comes back to me, I'm going to tell you, I told you so, because I'm always going to tell you the truth. I'm, within reason. There's compliance in our space. Like, I can't just tell you everything about a client.
Sure.
But like, if I know that a client is going to waste your time, like, I'm like, listen, like, maybe you want to pass this one up.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, going back to that, so your focus was obviously telling them where the market was, et cetera, et cetera. How do you stay consistent, or how would a realtor stay consistent in any market? Like, what do you think, like, the difference between, like, mediocre and a top, realtor is?
Yeah, I think it goes back again to, I tell anyone, start with, you got to start with passion, right? You can't lead. I find so many people get into real estate for the wrong reason. And then when the tough times come, or, when all of these things happen in markets, they don't stay true because they don't want to have those tough days. Because when you're passionate about it, those tough days are still tough, but you're gonna push through, right? So, for me, it's always the education piece. It's the going to conferences was a big thing for me. And when you're, like I said, when you're passionate about, for me, like I said, it was being an entrepreneur, just being able to guide my own path, right? That was always the most powerful thing. It just happened that, I always say, for the last 21 years, I really haven't worked, because I found real estate and I love it, right? It's been able to give me a great lifestyle, and it's been able to help me train other people and give them things that they didn't think were possible. I was brought up, and it was just, again, a different mindset of you just, you go get a job, you work for someone, you work a 9 to 5, you're miserable, but you got to bring home a paycheck and pay your bills and put food on the table, right? And it's just, that's not a true statement.
No.
So for me, it starts with that, just being very passionate about the industry. We do so many things of, just putting on different events and stuff like that to just try to give back and level up, the better, if I could have transactions like with Jennifer all the time, would make the business so much easier, except for maybe the negotiation piece. But it just, and Jenny, you see it when you do a transaction with somebody who's not at that level, it makes everything more difficult on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all these great agents we have out there.
Oh.
And I totally agree with that, though. I think it's just people who get in the business and think it's easy, quick money, and then they're floating through. And when you really love what you're doing, it's a completely different situation. And so I totally agree. There's just a lot of people who are just doing it just to do it. And then, it is a stressful time, no matter what we look at it, depending on who you are as an agent. I haven't been one for a very long time, and luckily enough, I've got great people in my corner, and so I'm doing pretty well. But if you're an agent that, doesn't do social media and doesn't, and was using the same market for the last 10 years, and you had to deal with what we just went through and the high rates and people getting scared, you're not in a great place mentally. You're not in a great place emotionally, and you're not financially, you're struggling. So what happens when you have all of that? You're stressed, and then you're trying to deal with transactions, and then you're trying to make them happen, even if they shouldn't be happening, and then that's what you have to deal with on the other side of a transaction, and it's just unfortunate. So.
Jenny, what do you attribute, once we're talking about it, what do you attribute, your success in coming in, I mean, all these agents that were 5, 8, 10-year veterans quit. Like, what made you different in this market?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just walked in the right room at the right time. I think that was a big thing for me.
Partially.
It was a big thing for me. But I mean, working for the government, I think, gave me a lot of leverage into walking into the real estate business. Even though completely different business, I still learned how to talk to people and how to, work with people and how to help people and how to negotiate in certain situations. I was still selling something to, companies. It was just a different product. So all I had to do was kind of pivot, like Ryan said, and then just figure out what it is I was selling, And really at the end of the day, for me, I think that I'm selling myself. I mean, that's my biggest thing is who you are as an agent matters. Like you can talk to a million people and half of them can hate you. But if you're a real person being honest, I mean, that's my biggest thing is just being me and being able to remember what it was like to sell and buy a home personally. And if I just put myself in that place and work with a client that way, I mean, that's the relationship I'm trying to build with people. I'm not just trying to be a sale and quick and I'm in and I'm out and I'm done, right? Yeah. It's what do they need from me and how do I give that to them? And so for me, it's just being literally who I am and trying to walk them through that. And then value add, obviously. That was a big thing for me too. I
was getting ready to key in on it. I was like, Jenny, you are one of the smartest people I've ever seen pivot and shift that quickly, especially being a newer agent. Into something that is parallel in the industry, and that's what like a lot of a perfect example. My buddy Lindsey Conrad, he's the mortgage chef. Like he likes he likes cooking, blah blah blah. That was genius move on his part, and that's where I think like a lot of people in this market, they just they want to, I mean, there's nothing worse than punch me in the face when somebody posts about interest rates. Like every time somebody, I think an angel loses their wings when somebody goes on the internet and they're like, rates are da 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 da.
That same
call
post
me
that
today.
We always see, over and over again that everybody's posting.
Yeah, that everybody's posting, and now realtors are posting it, and they don't know the compliance piece because if I just post the interest rate, like my head legal guy is going to call me and say, take the rate down. You got to have X, Y, and Z, blah blah blah. So it is not selling rates. It's selling your personality, selling something that you're passionate about. Like I tell all my loan officers at 4 to 6 networking events every week. I don't care how you're feeling. I don't care if you got stuff going on in your life. You've got to go to 4 to 6 networking events. Now, the one thing I've been successful at is telling loan officers like 4 to 6 network, you can go to 4 events in a day. You can go to Brokers Opens and count each broker open as an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Because Brokers Opens, there's tons of realtors.
You can come to Investor Source. It's a great way to network.
Come to Investor Source. Yeah. Surround yourself and people that are doing it.
And separate yourself. That's the biggest part is there's 8, how many realtors and how many loan officers are there? And like, you have to be different. You have to be
way different.
It's value add. And I learned that from Investor Source and Ryan, actually. And it was, what is going to separate me from everybody else? How am I going to be a different realtor? What am I going to be able to provide, right? And so there's not a ton of agents that are staging or designing, and so that was a big move for me, was using that business and just to be different.
You're smart to figure out I always tell every agent, you got to be able to answer the question, what makes you different? What's your value add, right? And if you can't articulate that yourself, you need to start there. Because there's so many agents you could ask them right now, what makes you, why would I work with you? And they can't answer that question. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to answer that first.
They say something really stupid that everybody else is saying.
Yes, that's true too.
I'll give you great service.
Yeah.
That's always the best one, right? I always say, who's ever said, you know what, I'm probably going to give you mediocre service, but everybody expects great service, right?
I'll give you 50% of what I got. It's going to be great.
It's amazing to me when that is their value add. Like, I'll give you good service. I mean, I don't care if I go to McDonald's. I expect some good. Give me good service.
Yeah.
Now, the burger might not be too good, but,
There was a mortgage company I worked for, and they, you see how they have these sheets up here on the wall. That was their sales pitch. They said, no, you got to say this exactly. It's 2 pages long, like, blah, 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 and then it has, insert, person's name, whatever. And I took it and I ripped it up and I threw it out and I said, I'm going to do what I do. You know what I'm saying? And lo and behold, I shot up to the top. And it's because I just sold myself. It was conversational. I don't believe in selling. Like, I just believe in having conversations with people and giving them the information and letting their intelligence take over and say, okay, this guy gave me as much education and information on the topic as possible. He actually cares about me making the right decision.
For sure.
Is that where Investor Source came from? I feel like that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's you know what, Investor Source to me, like, Isaac was very successful in doing his event, and then he sat me down with Wayne, and I had already, we did events probably quarterly or whatever, which to your point, like, you guys do events, that's genius. Like, a lot of realtors just sit there and like, what do I do? Create an event. Like, I tell all my loan officers for my group, I said, create your own event. You may have 5 people show up, but you change that, five people's lives by just having the conversation. Like, Jenny walked into the room and was like listening to me, Isaac, Wayne, Aaron, like everybody was like rapid fire all this information, and like she just really quickly elevated herself on that information. Sometimes it's just going in the room. Locale has an event tomorrow. They've had one going for I think 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
There are just so many people that are actually doing the transactions in the market, and they have events that you can go to, and you just gotta show up.
And they're all different. Like, that's the best part is when I started as a licensed agent, when I was working full time, so I didn't have time to go to events. Like, I just, I didn't really care to either.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as I realized, okay, like, I have to do this, know, and my life changed, and this was going to be my business. And I started going to them. I couldn't believe how different every event was. Like, I just thought, oh, it's all the same. We all just sit around and talk and drink and eat, like, and then Investor Source happened, and then I realized quickly I should support other companies doing the same thing, other, agents and lenders and stuff. And then we started going, and Locales is so different than ours.
Yeah.
And the best part about it, like, at least in the Cleveland area, I don't know if it's the same in Columbus, but the support is huge. Like, Locale supports our event. They come to our event. We support their event. We go to their event, and we're all selling the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think actually Travis put out a podcast yesterday, and he said that, like, competition versus collaboration, right? And like the big difference in that. And I remember when I got licensed, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many agents out there. I'm competing with all of these people who are so great and so wonderful. And then
you quickly realize you're just competing with yourself.
100%. And then, like, fast forward to now, and I'm like, there is no competition. There's not another Jenny in the business. Like, not here. There's not anybody's going to offer what I am or do what I'm going to do, And so I think that just completely changed my entire perspective on the business and, like, why I continue to do what I do.
It's very exciting.
It is exciting.
Growth.
Yeah, for sure. Even though, like, in November, I'm like, oh my God, should I keep doing real estate? What should I do? Should I do something different? It was quick. It was just a quick moment.
Well, we all have those.
Well, I was going to say.
It's 21 years I have those moments, but.
Yeah, I've had.
I'm back. I'm good now.
Good. Well, it happens to the best of us. Mm-hmm. Ryan, what is your prediction for the market in 2024, 2025?
I think it's going to be, and I say this every year, but when I really dive in to the numbers, and again, I truly believe you can make money in a bull or bear market. But I truly believe that this year is going to be a great year in real estate. We're already seeing, rates trickling. When we always talk about the elephant in the room, rates. They're a driving factor because a lot of the narrative, right? And I always say it's funny to me, if you turn on CNN or Fox or whatever, you're gonna get the total opposite. It's like everybody watches the same thing.
To me, they're poison.
And it's funny both. Of just, and that's why I tell my agents, where are you getting your story? What story are you telling? I think it's going to be a phenomenal year. I will say that if anyone's out there listening and you're on the fence, now's the time to get out and buy. Come March, April, I know in our market in Columbus, it's going to get back to it's going to be a multiple offer situation again. And that's why I tell people, when you really understand and you have the right real estate agent, the right mortgage person by your side, the right lender, you're going to be able to navigate and you're going to be able to get the best of both worlds. Because the people that are going to wait and say, I'm going to wait for rates to drop, well, guess what? You're going to overpay for the house again, right? Just date the rate right now. You can refi, and I'm sure you guys, most lenders are allowing people to refi for free. There's a ton of opportunities.
2-1 buy downs, 3-2-1 buy downs, where you can buy down the rate for the first year, the second year, and the third year, or the first and second year. And you're starting to see seller concessions, so sellers are starting to pay stuff. You're starting to see, price reductions, which shows the marketing softening just a little bit. But to your point, in springtime,
yeah, you can negotiate right now. I can do my job. It was tough, during those COVID years and when the rates were so low, because I would literally have to be honest with you and say, hey, I believe you're overpaying. Like, if you want this house, you're going to have to overpay for it.
We did that all the time, too.
And I'm going to be honest with you, because people are like, what do you think I should offer? And I'll be like, offer the very max that you're going to be able to sleep at night and still go, be able to fall asleep and not have it, be too big of a burden. But you're overpaying for your house.
And you're going to be
100%.
okay with no equity for about 4 years.
Yeah, that's why we're not, we have down payment options, but to your point, I was in the business in 2006, and I saw people with no equity and what happened in downturn, which is, there's not going to be a downturn like a 2008, but you will see a flat market, and if you have no equity in the house, or something that was very popular was paying $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 over list price, again, you always have to, the good thing about, at least the loan officer, I believe realtors have the same fiduciary responsibility, is you have to act in the client's best interest. But there's a lot of realtors, to me, and there's a lot of loan officers too, that did it all for the commission. But a good friend of mine, Allie Carr, I think she's still with Berkshire Hathaway.
I think so too.
She's an attorney, and I remember sitting with her in the middle, and she's like, I can't sleep at night, and I was like, I agree. I've seen the end of this. I've seen, I talk about when I underwrote modifications at PNC Bank, and I read literally hundreds of stories of people that were underwater, that were struggling, that needed the modification. Yeah. And I approved a lot of them because, like I said, I'm a common sense guy. A lot of banking got out of control. So you put these people in this situation, you got to fix it.
Yep.
But that gave me a really humbling experience, is just reading those people's stories. And we really try to make the right decision for the person. We'll say, hey, listen, there is down payment options available. VA and USDA are really good 100% financing options. Veterans, God bless them, tend to pay their bills and or perform. VA loans tend to perform at the same level as conventional, not as much as FHA. But if you see a FHA default rate, which is, I think, hovering around 7.2%, you add a down payment assistance onto that number skyrockets.
Right.
So that's the type of stuff where we'd really try to educate people and say, listen, what if a boiler goes out? You have no money in the bank. You came to me with 10 cents in your bank. You want down payment assistance. Down payment assistance isn't free either. Unless you have seller concession, you got to pay for taxes, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So we really try to walk people through the downside. And I think that's where, people like us, Ryan, like Jenny, we actually truly care about our clients making the right decision.
Yeah. Well, I think when you want to be in this industry, I tell everyone, our goal is, we want to be your agent I'm 21 years in, right? And I tell my team that too. We really go after agents that want this as a career choice, right? Yeah. Not just something to try out or a hobby or, let's just get a real estate license out to, friends and family. And when you look at it that way, I always say, if you take it that serious and you look at it that way, for most people, that all of us know, right? Buying or selling a house is the biggest investment that you're ever going to be a part of in most people's lives, right? Most people that I know, they're not buying or selling anything bigger than a house, and they're letting very uneducated, people handle that transaction, which is scary, right? And when you truly appreciate the fact that not only do you live in a home and have so many great things for your family and raising a family and all those, but it's a financial vehicle too.
Yeah.
So we try to explain all that, and like I said, right now when you talk about this year and the landscape right now, is we're talking to a lot of people about that. What if we can take some of that equity, because most people right now are sitting with equity in their house, right?
Yeah, we're equity-rich environment for sure.
And that's when people talk about 2008, and like I said, when you really understand the market and are educated in it, it's not like that, because everyone back then was doing the 100% or the 103%, right? And,
I remember 125.
And they would do the negative AM loans and just all this crazy stuff that made no sense. So they were upside down. And but now people, I would say, even if they have to sell, they got equity to do that. Even if they're in a situation where, the economy or something, people have enough equity to be able to cover the closing cost commissions and sell their house and be okay.
Yeah.
So, I think it's going to be an exciting year. We have, when you have an election year and just all the things that are going to be happening, I see it being a good year for real estate. Like I said, we're already predicting, the Fed's, saying what, 2, 3, 4 cuts this year?
They said, originally they said 6 and then they downgraded to 3. But as you saw, they didn't have to even do anything in November.
Right.
The CPI report came out, and then, the actual, because a lot of people don't understand, 30-year interest rate isn't like a fixed thing. Everybody thinks it's fixed. It's like a traded stock. You know what I'm saying? Mortgage-backed securities were created. It's like a traded stock, so it can change from day to day. So when you catch it on the downswing, obviously you're in a good hand. But like I said, the Feds didn't say virtually anything. The CPI report came out, and then you saw rates cool from, the 8s down into the 6s. We're locking people in the 7s on DSCR loans, which are basically not stated loans, but there's no income documents. So it's just like crazy. Like I said, like people complain about rates. I'm like, you're reading the clickbait, and some of these bigger, warehouses too. Like some of these bigger, like reputable brands were buying into the hype. Like, I remember Barry Habib came to Gold Star's. We're obviously a subsidiary. Gold Star had like a meeting for like all the franchisees, whatever. Barry Habib came in and he showed up. He held up this thing from American Banker that said "Death of the Mortgage Industry," and he's just like, "Guys, we're dead, right?" And it's like he's like, "No, that's not the case. It has never died. There's always been, there's always been homes. There's always transactions happening. Yep. There's always somebody that needs to upgrade. There's always somebody that needs to downgrade. There's a huge boomer market that are getting ready to have to downgrade, and that they said that's one of the next big waves. The millennials are buying, Gen Zs are buying because they're realizing that's the only way that they can create wealth, and boomers are 9 times more wealthy because they actually own a property. Like the wealth gap comes from real estate, and if you're focused in on teaching people the good word, then that's the first thing you're going to tell them is like, buy, you got to buy an asset that will give you tax write-off so you can write off interest, all kind of stuff when you own a house. So pretty exciting stuff. So we're winding down. You're a football guy.
I knew this was coming. What are the Super Bowl predictions? And we'll put money on it.
Super Bowl predictions are coming now. Browns let me down. I mean, that was the most exhausting.
I hope you weren't going to bring up the Browns.
But we made it. Like, look at the positive side. We went to the playoffs.
Imagine if we had Baker Mayfield still. I always
Get
go
me
back.
started.
I'm a huge Baker fan. I always was.
Ryan's indifferent about Baker Mayfield.
A lot of people were, but look at where he's at now.
I love him. I don't think we should have gotten rid of him.
Ever. I don't think so.
He had heart.
The hours we could spend on the Browns and that story, right? I read a big, because obviously with the Buccaneers now, it's a hot topic with Baker.
He came in, he sniffed the smelling. I was
He's
like,
going all the way.
Maniac.
He's going to take him all the way, and we're going to cry.
I'm gonna cheer for him.
I would, 100% cheer him on.
I'm cheering on Baker.
I would agree. He's, he's one of those guys that, whether you love him or hate him, he's that guy. You got to root for him, right? You do. He's a competitor. He's that type of guy that you're always going to want on your side because he just is a winner. Some people, like you said, some people are just winners. He's that type of guy.
I am rooting for Tampa, and I'm rooting for the Lions because the Lions know what misery is like.
Yeah, I could live with the Lions for sure. No, that Browns game was very.
I mean, in all fairness, most of the playoff games weren't great. Like, none of them were like super exciting.
I disagree. I was actually saying that for these to be wild card games, they were pretty, like, people were playing lights out for a wild card spot. Like, these weren't even like division leaders. Like, these were wild card games. But to your point, some of them were a little underwhelming. Our performance
looked like
in
they
the
shouldn't have
second
even
half,
been in the playoffs. I mean, come on.
Well, you got to also understand, Flacco was like trying to throw behind guys that were, the replacements. I mean, you had offensive linemen, no offense, that were just letting people walk by left and right. I'm like, you could be the best quarterback ever. Of course you're going to throw an interception because you're getting crushed behind the line.
It was an ugly game.
Second half was ugly. First half wasn't as bad.
Yeah. It was rough. We'll see. I'm fine with the Lions. I can live with the Bucks.
Lions in Tampa.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys? Lions in Tampa?
I'm a Detroit guy. So.
Detroit, D-Town all day. I'm all right. I'm all right with D-Town.
Yeah, like I said, they understand Cleveland's pain. So
they do. They're a Rust Belt town.
Yeah.
All right, getting ready to wrap it up here, folks. Definitely appreciate Ryan. Ryan, how can they get a hold of you real quick? Got about a minute left.
Probably the best thing, Facebook, obviously all the social media. Ryan Ruehle, obviously the last name spelled weird, but...
You're on the screen, so they can spell it.
Oh, good. I appreciate you guys having me here and just having a platform like this for people. Again, the biggest thing I tell anyone, if you're out there educating yourself and you're getting in the right rooms, right, when we talk about knowledge and whether it's through different listening platforms or stuff like that, but to get out there and get in the right rooms and the people you surround yourself with is life-changing.
Investor Source CLE, February 1st, first Thursday. Make sure you check me and Jenny there. Hopefully we can have Ryan there, and we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go Lions.
The proceeding was a paid informational program. The views and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of WOBL Radio.